Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings, as we do have a few weather warnings around over the next couple of days for wind in northern areas. But as we head through Friday into Saturday, we have seen numerous warnings issued today for very windy and rainy conditions, as we are expecting low pressure systems to move through the next few days, and the system on Friday night looks very lively, and there is a real possibility it does get names now. We're of course on to D for the naming, so that will be Storm Darragh, and that could be arriving Friday night. So we've got numerous warnings issued for that, and we'll have a look at the latest UKV, looking at the precipitation, temperature and wind gusts for that period. Once that system clears though into the weekend and start of next week, it is actually turning very cold, with northeasterly winds arriving. Temperatures by day mid to low single digits, overnight well below freezing. Not expecting anything major in terms of snow at this stage, and that is because it's a fairly dry northeasterly wind, but nonetheless turning much colder after a potentially very stormy Friday into Saturday. And we'll be able to see that on the long range charts as well, as it does look like much of the foreseeable future is looking pretty chilly, below average from majority of ensemble members, and some are actually pretty cold and maybe even wintry as we head into the lead up to Christmas. So do remember, if you enjoy the videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the links in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, we have got this weather front moving in from the east, or moving eastwards at the moment, and it is pushing away any of that colder air that we have seen the last couple of nights, and it's going to be much milder for all through Thursday. But of course, this evening we've got to contend with this rain. It's pretty heavy, especially in the north, and it does, like most areas, going to see at least a few hours of moderate to heavy rain. Now, recording this around 6:30 in the evening, and you can see in the east it is of course colder, where the cold air still remains, but it is getting slowly pushed away, and you can already see in the west temperatures are well above average for the time of year, into the double digits through the evening, which is very mild, and it's pushing all that cold air away, and you can see the cold air still across much of northern Europe, but all going to get pushed away as we do start to see this westerly wind moving in. If you look at the weather warnings, we've got weather warnings issued for the next 5 days. We have got a few wind warnings issued over the next day or two for northern regions. This warning here, of course, the far northern Isles of Scotland until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Again, we won't look at this in detail, as we did look at it yesterday, and it hasn't been updated since then. If you look into Thursday, we've got this other warning issued for Northern Ireland, parts of Western Scotland, Northern England, into the Midlands, East Anglia and North Wales from 3 p.m. tomorrow until 6 a.m. on Friday. Again, for generally windy conditions, 40 to 50, possible maybe 60 to 70. And again, we're looking at medium likelihood, lower end of the impact matrix. So pretty lively, but nothing, too severe. Into Friday though, we've got much more extensive warnings. We've got this warning still there, but it gets eclipsed by this big warning that's issued from 3 p.m. on Friday all the way to 6 a.m. on Sunday, covering pretty much all of England and all of Wales. Again, the warnings could be extended to Northern Ireland and Scotland as well, but at the moment this is where we've got the widespread warning, and I'm expecting these to be confined, broken up, timings changed as we get nearer to this system arriving. This is the system that I think could be named Storm Darragh. You can see here a deep low may cross England and Wales from Friday afternoon, clearing to the east through Saturday night. The low may bring a period of strong winds to much of the area, with some heavy rain likely in the north and west, some hail snow potentially up to 200 metres, and around 15 to 25 millimetres, quite widely, so around an inch, and particularly across central, northern and western parts of England and Wales, with exposed higher ground maybe seeing 50 to 70 miles per hour, 50 to 70 millimetres. Winds will quite widely gust 40 to 50 inland, but could get up to 60, maybe even 60 to 70 around coasts, and locally near 80. So a very lively system. As I said, from the looks of the latest runs, would not be surprised if this gets named in the next 24 hours or so. We are looking at medium impact and very low likelihood at this stage, but as we get nearer to the event, I am expecting this impact matrix to shift, and I wouldn't be surprised, as I said, to see a localised amber warning issued for maybe some of the wind and rain. Into Saturday and Sunday, still got this warning issued, but as I said, I'm expecting this to be broken up, timings to change as well. Now, if you go over to the latest UKV now and start on the precipitation, you can see we've got the heavy rain moving in from the west overnight tonight. It's going to give a few hours of heavy rain for all as it clears away through the morning. But for most, for rush hour tomorrow, most of that rain has cleared, bar from a few bits and bobs. Into Thursday afternoon, got some heavier rain in the north, a bit of a occluded weather front there, it looks like. A little hook around a small area of low pressure. Could be some really lively rain along that. Not expecting it to be too widespread, but looks really lively. Some of these bands moving through on Thursday afternoon, maybe even a squall feature there, maybe a bit of thundery activity as well. So that's something that you need to keep an eye out for. Again, it will be fairly localised, but could be very severe where that moves through. Maybe even a bit of hill snow across Scotland there with some evaporative cooling. Through the rest of Thursday, still some heavier rain around, but it is again going to be confined to certain regions. Into Friday though, it's a dry morning before we do see that big hook as that storm system moves in, and you can see that hook there really quite well defined, and that normally does show a really well structured, well defined low pressure system that normally contains severe weather. So most likely will be named from the looks of this run here. Some snow on the higher ground, but the snow doesn't look anywhere near as widespread as it has been with some of these weather fronts and storm systems we've seen over the past couple of weeks when they've bumped into cold air. But nonetheless, the risk is still there, and I wouldn't be surprised again maybe to see a yellow warning for snow for some of that higher ground of northern England and Scotland. Now, the system clears its main weather front through Friday night into Saturday, but we see the remnants, the northern edge of that weather front still linger across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and as it pulls away, this is where we start to drag in cold air, but it does bring another period of heavy rain for much of England and Wales through Saturday morning. So a bit of a lull around midnight, but then it livens up again, and this is where we could see the strongest winds as the centre of this storm system pulls away. Eventually, by the evening, much of that precipitation will have cleared, apart from a few lingering showers in the far east, and then we pull in northerly winds, and it goes much colder, and we start to see a few showers drifting in off the North Sea. Now, the air mass doesn't look quite cold enough for these to fall as snow, but it would still be really chilly temperatures, low single digits, mid single digits at best, and we've got these cold, potentially wintry showers, but the latest UKV still keeping us rain, probably because the dew points are above freezing. The air mass does look cold enough for snow. It'll be those dew points that will be hindering these showers from being wintry. But nonetheless, north to northeasterly winds arriving by the end of the weekend, the start of next week, telling us much colder, but also drier. Now, if you look at the air masses first, you can see it's chilly at the moment, but much milder air will be moving in over the next sort of 12 hours, where eventually behind that system on Friday, we see again some cooler air masses sort of mixing in with that low pressure system. That system clears through, and then it goes very cold, and you can see that from the upper air temperatures widely around the -5 degree line. Again, we're not expecting it to get much colder than that, but of course this time of year, -5 can still produce some really chilly conditions at the surface, because we'll likely see an inversion taking place with those temperatures at the surface getting even colder than what they should do with the upper air temperatures. And we'd, of course, see those temperatures linger as we have very short days in terms of daylight. Now, if you look at the wind gusts, and then we'll finally look at the temperatures here, you see nothing too much going on over the next few hours. A few areas of strong winds across northern regions. That's why we've got that warning in those isolated areas. But it's really as we head into Friday where things get really lively. Now, the initial weather front starts to move in as we head into Friday evening, and you can see strong winds initially, maybe 50-60 miles per hour, but it's as the back edge of the system clears through Saturday morning, that's where the winds could get up to 70, 80, maybe even 90, and inland here for much of England and Wales, we're looking at 60 to 70. With these sort of winds across inland areas, I wouldn't be surprised to see an amber warning issued. But of course, this is one run, and it's still 3 days away, so the positioning and intensity can still change. This latest run, though, would definitely indicate a named storm and amber warning. So we'll have to wait and see. But yes, Saturday morning into the afternoon could be very lively indeed. Eventually, it clears, but it remains really quite blustery all the way through to the end of the weekend. If you look at the max temperatures, it has been a cold day today once again, but temperatures will rise quite rapidly through this evening into Thursday. And see for Thursday, temperatures widely into the double digits for much of England, Wales and the Republic of Ireland. Still cold across northern regions where cold air does linger, but it's not quite as cold as it has been. 13, 14 degrees potentially across the southwest, so very mild for early December. So we're going from really chilly to very mild to very chilly once again. So very up and down, exactly what I've been saying for the last week or two. The start of December is very up and down. It's likely to continue like that through the end of this week. Now into Friday, it turns colder once again as we do see a chilly air mass arrive, potentially low single digits by the morning, but not expecting a massive frost. And again, 6 or 7 degrees by day. So again, pretty chilly there through Friday. And eventually that big weather front moves in, and you can see why it's so strong with that storm system. 13 degrees in the centre of the system, freezing to the north of the system, as those temperature clashes really spins up this low pressure system. And that's why we normally see these big name storms during the autumn, winter and spring months. That's when we get the biggest collision between air masses, and that's exactly what is fueling this system here. That's why it's gone from being a regular low pressure system a couple of days ago to now potentially being a named storm, because that temperature contrast has increased, and that is what is just continuing to ramp up this system. Now eventually that system clears, and Saturday afternoon looks really cold as that northerly wind comes in, 4 to 6 degrees at best. By this point, the air masses aren't actually terribly cold, but it's the combination of the rain, the cloud, and the wind, and the chilly temperatures generally means it's going to be really cold Saturday afternoon. Overnight temperatures will drop towards freezing in northern areas, but then Sunday looks like another chilly day, 4 to 7 degrees, a lot more sunshine around and dry conditions, but still really chilly. And again, expecting those temperatures in the north and west at least to drop away quite rapidly once again into Monday morning. Now, if you have a look at some of the longer range charts now, if we start on the latest GFS, you can see a westerly flow continues over the next couple of days. That storm system arrives into Friday, most likely storm Darragh, and you can see it does clear, and as it does, we see this northeasterly wind arrive, and that dominates much of the early parts of next week. Eventually, the high pressure does topple by probably the middle of next week, and that will dry things up widely, probably give some clearer skies, but also would likely bring more widespread frosts. Following that, we do see high pressure trying to make a break for the Arctic, but it doesn't have too much success on this latest run. So we do see colder air masses returning, but eventually towards the longer range, the far end of this run, it goes very unsettled, but cold as well. You can see the jet streams well to our south, so we're in a very cold but unsettled pattern. Not cold enough for widespread snow, maybe cold enough for snow in the north, but definitely cold enough for it to feel like we're in winter. It's not this sort of unsettled southwesterlies. This is a sort of a cold zonal northwesterly wind. We've got big low stratospheric polar vortex sat just over the top of us and to our north, trying to push very cold air our way. But of course, with not sufficient blocking, it doesn't maintain those colder northerly winds, and it means low pressure just gets born within this system, and that's why it's very unsettled but also cold in that longer term. Now, if you do compare to the GM, it's broadly very similar. A westerly flow continues to push in. North to northeasterly winds arrives through the end of the weekend into the start of next week and dominate much of the second half of this run. Easterly winds potentially towards day 10, and then right towards the end of the run we start to see that high pressure trying to ridge northwards, but again it doesn't have too much success. And we're kind of in between systems here, in a bit of a lull, a bit no man's ground, not under higher pressure, not under lower pressure, and yeah, just not really too much going on there. So again, GM a little bit muddled there at the end of its run. Now finally, if we look at the ECMWF, the midday run has just come out, and I haven't actually looked at it, so it'll be interesting to see what it shows. Again, we can see that north and northeasterly wind pushing in, chilly easterly winds into next week, and eventually towards day 10, we try to see that high pressure moving northwards, but it doesn't have too much success, and by the end of the run, we are seeing northwesterly wind, similar to the GFS, where it is chilly, or it's going to be turning much chillier, but it is pretty unsettled as well. Now, to finish by looking at the latest ensembles, these are the latest GFS ensembles. You can see very up and down over the next few days, and that's powering the storm systems, and then much colder through the second half of the weekend into early next week. Upper temperatures getting down towards the -3 to -5 points, so not quite cold enough for snow, but chilly enough for overnight frosts, and just generally quite a wintry feel. Longer term, as we head towards the 15th to 20th of December, we do have massive uncertainty. There are some very cold runs, some milder runs, but generally are hovering average to below average. So still chillier conditions are favoured, but the uncertainty increases massively. You can see, though, medium term, it is pretty dry as expected with that high pressure around. Now 2 meter temperatures are looking pretty cold. Here we're not looking much above sort of mid-single digits at best into next week. And you can see not a lot of diurnal range there for eastern areas at least as we head into sort of Monday, Tuesday. And that's probably because the cloud is getting dragged in off the North Sea, and it's going to keep those temperatures around 5 or 6 degrees during the day, which, isn't cold for sort of the evenings, but it will feel very chilly. It will be quite a depressive feel out there if that came off. Whereas other regions further westwards and northwards, we see some sunshine, we'd see a bit more clearer skies, and of course colder overnight temperatures. So that's something we need to keep an eye on. Not a lot of diurnal range being shown there. That could be symbolic of a pretty gloomy easterly wind in those eastern regions. We have to keep a close eye on that. And the dew points, as I said, early next week look like they're going to hover around 1, 2, 3 degrees. That is the main reason why we're not going to see much winteriness within this air mass, or at least not a lot of winteriness at this stage. Now, to finish by looking at the latest ECMWF ensembles, we have to look at the midnight run. You can see it's very similar, cold, below average into much of next week. And then as it heads to that 15th to 20th point, around average once again, maybe hovering slightly below and slightly above at times. So no massive signal at this stage, but still looking pretty chilly and pretty seasonal, as I said. So it is looking pretty eventful over the next few days, potentially a named storm arriving on Friday, but it does quieten up into next week as we do start to see a colder but drier northeasterly wind moving in. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.